Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Footy podcast. I'm Jack Hudson, and joining me as always, Port Adelaide legend Warren Treadray. Treaders, how are you, mate?
I'm going very, very well as we preview the AFLW Grand Final. Well, look out, eh? 1 and 2 can't make it. 3 and 4 say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, bit of a change. First time ever, but we'll get into that. And joining us is the Hard Tag co-host and House of Footy's own Brandon Patane. Brando, how are you, mate?
Hello, Traders. How are you? Good to be here. Good to make my debut on a different show after being on a few different videos on the channel.
Debuts are always good, long as you get a kick. And I suspect with your knowledge of the AFLW season, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Just don't be nervous. Get your first kick and everything will settle. You'll be fine.
Exactly. Sure hope so.
No struggles at all. But Brando, obviously we're heading in. Brisbane playing North Melbourne. What are you sort of expecting going into it?
Well, I mean, the game itself is a bit of a surprise. Obviously, as Treaders mentioned, 1 and 2 aren't in the game. Adelaide and Melbourne were, in my opinion, far and away the two best teams this year. And Brisbane and North, who they showed signs throughout the year. The top four was fairly close in itself, but to see those two teams go through, it's going to be a very interesting game. I think it's going to be a very seesawy affair. You know, North Melbourne probably the best defensive side throughout the year by far, and the Lions are on the counter a very good attacking side. So they're going to have to combat North Melbourne's defence and sort of try and poke holes into that, because on the other side of that, they're very leaky themselves. So it's going to be very seesawy. Both sides were able to scrape through their prelim finals, so they both know how to get the job done. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they do that on the weekend.
Brendan, you mentioned Adelaide and Melbourne finishing 1 and 2 effectively after the minor round. You said they were the best team. Is there much gap between the two teams? Because you mentioned they're probably up and running. They just really didn't execute, did they? And really probably didn't execute it to death in most of their games, because the final series has been super close.
Definitely not. And even throughout the season, those four teams were very close. I mean, plenty of them, they were beating each other all over the season. North were actually the only team who didn't beat any of the other top four teams throughout the year. So, I'm not sure what exactly it was with Adelaide and Melbourne. It was probably just an execution issue. Maybe a bit of complacency, given they've been there before, won flags in the last few years. So, we'll really see how the Lions and the Kangaroos execute on the weekend. But yeah, it was purely just execution and complacency for the Crows and the D's.
But so North Melbourne as well, at qualifying final, they absolutely smashed the D's. They've shown that they can be quite dangerous. So how do you view that? Like, to send such a message early in the finals?
Yeah, well, I thought for North, that was purely just defensive work. Like, from what I remember, it spent a lot of time in the D's forward line, and it was just pinging back and forth, because the D's, they have a lot of attacking flair. Their midfielders do good work getting the ball forward, creating opportunity, but North were like a brick wall back there, and I think they're going to have to do that again against the Lions, but I think the Lions are arguably one of the best attacking sides in the league. So, I think it's going to be very seesawing, but that was pretty much what it was for North against the D's, just having that brick wall defense. It's so hard to score against them.
No, I love a stat in sport, and AFLW is no different. 5 years since the grand finals played in Victoria. The last time was at Princes Park, and this will be played at Princes Park. Do you think that helps North Melbourne, or is it a little bit more home field pressure?
I think given the last two games, it definitely plays into North Melbourne's favour. The way they've played against the Crows and the D's at Icon Park in the last two games, they can take a bit of confidence out of that, and I think they know the environment very well. So I think in that sense it plays in their favour. But the Lions have been superb against the top four sides this year. They beat all three of them during the season, and the last two games in finals have been superb. So the Lions have experience beating these teams. So again, it's a 50-50 affair in my opinion. It's just...
Sorry, mate. From what you've seen, North debut grand final, Lions have had 5 before and won a premiership. Do you put much emphasis on that?
I think it's important to have the grand final experience. Obviously, Brisbane have won 1 and they've been in 5. This will be their 5th. So they have those players. But North also have those flag winners. You know, Emma Carney played for the Bulldogs, won a grand final there. Jenna Bruton was with her. And then you've got players like Talia Randall, Lulu Puller. They played for Brisbane. Despite not winning a grand final with them. But they'll be an important part of getting the better of them, because they sort of know how Brisbane play, and they played under Craig Starcevich there. So I think having the bigger group of players who have that experience is important, but North also have that experience in sections and I think they have players that'll be as important to getting a result.
Now, there's a bit. I like a bit of stats lining up over time. So Princess Park, obviously, again. Mon Conti also was best on ground in that, and so she won the AFLW
She
Best and
was.
Fairest this past week. So a medal this week for Mon Conti, Princess Park, and Brisbane lost the grand final by a goal. So a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and it will be a close game as well. I'm certain of that. So maybe, you never know.
But on that, so like Brisbane obviously losing 4 grand finals, and all of them pretty much by a kick. Like,
Mhm.
or losing 3 grand finals, sorry, losing all of them by a kick. Surely that's going to be playing your mental situation.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. It could very much potentially do that. But I mean, on the same token, it could play into their favor in terms of having the experience of losing those grand finals and trying to be able to overturn that in this one. So, I mean, yeah, again, that could go either way. But if it does play to their mentals, I'm sure North will capitalize on that quite
Oh,
comfortably.
I've always been a big one, whether watching any form of footy, AFLW, AFL men's, SANFL, waffle, whatever it is, past games against these teams. But if you look at the recent history, out of their past 2, Brisbane have won both by a combined score of 9 points. So last time by 2 points, the previous year in October 2022 by 7 points. So there's really nothing that separates. And if anything, the reason the big one was, when I say the big margin of 7 points, was the inaccuracy from North. So clearly, probably past history suggests too that there's going to be nothing in it.
Yeah, well, particularly this year's game between the two teams, as you said, it was a 2-point margin, and North were up by a fair bit in that game. They got up by 3 goals by half time, and Brisbane came back to win. So I think it'll be very similar to that, a very close game by the end. And the way I see it is that both teams will want to get that early lead, North particularly, because they'll want to get the early lead and then defend. They won't want to fight from behind. But for Brisbane, on the other hand, it's getting the early lead and then forcing North to be more advanced and try and poke those holes in their defence. So it's going to be a close game again, and they've had plenty of them. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
All right, talking teams. Any injury concerns on both fronts for either team?
Well, the big one is Dakota Davidson at Brisbane. Obviously, she's been their best forward all year, all Australian on Monday. For me, she's arguably one of the league's most impactful players. A bigger body, super energetic, really quick for her size, and great in the air, and a brilliant eye for goal as well. So that will affect the Lions if she can't get up with her knee injury. But they also do have the attacking power elsewhere. You know, the speed and movement of players like Courtney Hodder, Sophie Conway is very advanced. She was also all Australian on Monday. And then obviously they got Shannon Campbell, who went in there when Dakota Davidson went out with injury and made an impact. So they have options. They're very versatile, but having Dakota Davidson out will be huge, particularly because of how good North Melbourne are defensively.
And you mentioned that each team had 3 All-Australians. Is there a team that leans towards who relies on their stars more, as opposed to probably a more even spread of team?
I think Brisbane probably have a more well-rounded team across the board. I think North Melbourne, those 2 midfielders in particular, Jasmine Garner, Ash Riddell, if they get shut down, game's over, in my opinion. Brisbane walk them. Like Garner and Riddell, I think they polled 30 votes combined on Monday night in a 10-game season. That's ridiculous numbers. Like 16 votes to Riddell.
That's
and
vote
14
hogging.
to Garner.
That
and
is
Garner
vote
was probably
hogging.
hard done by as well. Like Garner for me was the best player all year.
That smells them having shots from all over the ground and not handballing much. Is that fair?
Yeah. No.
Or stat monkeys. Just keep giving it to yourself.
Jeez. Favourite to win, Treaders, and ending up with 14 votes. That must sound familiar for you.
No, it doesn't. I was favourite to win and got 15 votes. So get stuffed, Jack. And Chris Judd. I only fell just behind him. He got 30. I got 15. Yeah.
Not a bad person.
I was never going to win, mate. Beck Judd wore that dress. That was set up.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, so do you think Brisbane will try to shut down those 2 midfielders, and who goes to the both of them?
I mean, that's how they win the game. And they've got good midfielders, Brisbane. They've got Belle Dawes, Ali Anderson, who's a former Best and Fairest winner for the league, and then Kathy Spark as well. So they'll try and work out what the best mix is there. But Jazz Garner is just superb. Like she for me should have won the Best and Fairest. I don't know how she only polled 14 votes. Best all season for me. So yeah, I think for Brisbane to win, those are the 2 players that they've got to shut down, because if they don't, it could get really ugly for them.
It's sort of very similar when you're talking about it compared to what we saw with contrasting styles effectively in the grand final, wasn't it? Brisbane wanted to get it outside, not so much a contested team. Collingwood wanted to keep it inside and retain the footy and not play, speed. It's almost like it sounds like the North Melbourne team is very much the Dower North Melbourne team of the 90s and 2000s, hard, great at contested footy, beat you in the tough stuff. Whereas Brisbane's pretty much like the Brisbane Lions we saw this year in the AFL. And this is, as we say, it's the first time but an AFL and AFLW team are both in a grand final in the same year with Brisbane. They want to run, they want to take the game out, they want to take risks. So really it's going to be about execution, isn't it? Who can break it open? If Brisbane can match them inside, the game will be on their terms. And if they can't, then they're going to find it pretty hard against a very dour defensive team. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one thing to note as well is the prelim final last week, Brisbane and Geelong. Geelong operate in a very similar way, very strong contested team, great ball winners, good at moving the football out of the middle. Georgie Prespakis, Amy McDonald, Nina Morrison, they've all been superb this year and Brisbane beat them. So I think that they have the tools to do it, to shut down that North midfield. Probably a tougher task given how good those two names have been. But yeah, I think, definitely that's how you win the game for Brisbane.
Got to ask the quirky question as well.
Oh, no.
Is Queensland cursed? This year we've seen how many Queensland teams lose grand finals?
A lot.
And we've got, two more this week?
Well, there are 2 in 24 hours in the last week into September/early October.
Yep. And then we've got...
You could pass it as coincidence for now, but if they don't get a win this weekend, jeez.
Because what is it? The Brisbane Heat and the Women's Big Bash against the Strikers, and then the Brisbane Lions as well. Gee whiz.
And the Broncos.
Yeah, Broncos, Brisbane Lions.
And it's fair to say the Bullets are a little bit off at the moment, so they might not get there.
Yeah, we won't worry about the Bullets.
Were you surprised to see Nicole Livingston step down, or do we assume that maybe there was a bit more than a step down? You never know with footy in the AFL world, but it was a surprise grand final week, isn't it? You're announcing effectively a new showcase week of AFLW that your boss is not going to be there, effective immediately almost, isn't it?
Look, you see the progress that the league's made over the last few years. Nicole Livingston's been an outstanding servant for the game. So I think at the time that she has stood down, it's not necessarily a bad thing because it could be a good time to move to that next step. But I can't say it didn't surprise me because I think we haven't had the league without her. So it's an interesting one. I'm not sure what is happening there behind the scenes, but yeah, she's been an amazing servant, as I said, and we'll miss her dearly.
Well, she's done a great job, hasn't she? Let's be honest. The game's on TV, the attendance is great, grassroots is out of control. I know in South Australia, I spoke on another platform with Jack the other day around one of the clubs. Actually has 16 junior girls teams and only 8 boys teams. So that says here the grassroots is huge. And we know they launched it top down. They got the stars in like Aaron Phillips, and the game has really created the interest. And now it is, as you say, up for the next person to capture. And we talk about capture. What do you think, attendance-wise, we can expect this week at Princes Park or Icon Park, as they know at Carlton?
From what I know, it's a sellout, so I think the stand will be full. And Icon Park, it has a lot of standing area around the side, so that'll all be full. I think it's going to be a huge day out, and one that the league will remember for a long time. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Capacity is 12K at Icon Park, so that'd be...
I reckon they'll hit it.
Yeah,
I reckon they'll hit it.
They'll hit it. So we'll go back to Nicole Livingston standing out. What do you think is the glaring issue moving forward for the next boss of the AFLW?
Well, I think attendance at home and away season games is a big one. I think Adelaide and Sydney games were very very well attended, particularly at Norwood, Henson Park. Victoria a little bit low. I don't know if that was because of bit of a footy hangover because of how big finals was in Victoria with the success of Carlton, success of Collingwood. So, I think attendance is a big one, and that's improved steadily over the years. But taking that next step and getting people more involved will be a big one for the next boss, in my opinion.
TV audience is clearly one they want to keep growing because if you want to generate the money, you need to be getting the ratings on TV, and I think that's slowly 100%. Increasing. The interesting one, you follow this all the time. Timing of the season, we've seen it at the end or towards the end of the men's season. We've seen it after the men's season started. We saw it in COVID at the start of the year, before the men's season and finishing early in the men's season. where does it fit best, considering we obviously have a summer of cricket and Big Bash and all the other bits and pieces that really is a competitive space for the AFL, but also too, then you've got your women's sports of basketball and obviously men's with the NBL as well. So there is that big mix, isn't there? What do you think's the ideal spot?
Well, I think the end goal as they increase the games is to have it in line with the AFL season. For now, it's in a bit of a weird spot where it starts as finals is happening in the men's competition. So it struggles to catch steam early, and then people start to get involved as you hit mid-season, late season. So I think with the amount of games that are there now, it has to be fairly removed. But the end goal is definitely as you get to 20, 22 games to have it in line with the men's season. That's the only place you can do it, I think, in my opinion.
Because as you say, though, like if you're a Carlton fan or a Collingwood fan or a Brisbane fan and your team's gone deep, or you're like me, a Port Adelaide fan, you're just sitting there going, damn, we didn't quite get there. There's that element of footy fatigue, isn't it, once the grand final's done. So it'll be interesting. The AFL would have all the research and data as to what works. But as you say, you push it more into after Christmas style, then you're dealing with, in some cases, 30-plus degree heat, which is pretty difficult for AFL footy or AFLW footy.
100%. I mean, back on what you just said, purely from my perspective, I mean, as a Carlton fan, we got fairly deep into finals, and I found those first 2 rounds of the AFLW season, I was trying to follow as much as possible, but my full attention wasn't there. That's just how it was. So, it's difficult. And then as we got further into mid-season, I could focus my full attention on the AFLW. But yeah, I think that's the issue. If you put it a bit later and it starts going into those hot months, then you've got a whole different issue as it is there. So,
okay,
they have to find that sweet spot. But yeah,
that game in Brisbane, who are you cursing most?
Probably us. It's us.
Look at the emotion of footy. Gosh, you got to laugh at yourself, and but geez, it's frustrating when you don't quite get there.
We started well and they trounced us. They had the experience. I can't blame any of them. They played brilliant footy. So hopefully we'll be back again next year.
Geez, it was euphoric in the first quarter if you're a Blues fan, wasn't it? It was like book the tickets at the nightclub. We're going. It was on fire.
Oh, geez. Well, good luck to all the teams. Well, both the teams this weekend. And, look,
Jack, before you close it out.
Yeah, go on, Tread.
It's time to put them on the line. We've got the Cup presenters, Brisbane's retired premiership skipper, Emma Zilke, and then we've got Jack Ziebell for North Melbourne, who is going to be presenting the Cup and who is going to be the AFLW premiers for 2023.
I think North Melbourne get on top. And I said it was going to be a close game, but I could see it being close all the way to the end, and then they just edge away because of how seesawy it can be. I think they're going to win by 12 points.
Wow, blowout.
Maybe. And yeah, for me, best on ground, Jasmine Garner, she's going to be crucial. As I said, they have to shut her down. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. She's been best all year, and I think she takes out the medal on the day.
Well, the last 2 have been combined by 9 points. Wonderful tipping says 12 points. Bang. North Melbourne are premiers. Lock it down.
There it is. That's what we got. So that is all for us. So thank you for joining us, and enjoy the AFLW Grand Final, and we'll see you next week.